Some people say that Jim Carrey is a wacko, while others call him a misunderstood genius. There's one thing that no one can argue with, though. The guy is a screen legend. He's one of the funniest and most popular movie stars who's ever lived, and he's led the way starring in some of the most hilarious movies ever made. He has so much energy, and he manages to make the typically tiresome and lazy form of slapstick comedy feel fresh and fun and engaging. He's also a rather interesting guy, too. So here are 10 facts that you probably didn't know about Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey sent his resume to Carol Burnett at age 10.
Hi, Mom.
When Jim Carrey was just 10 years old, he sent his resume in to Carol Burnett because he wanted to be featured as a regular on the show, like Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. He knew he was destined to be a great showman, and he simply wanted to skip all those years of high school and college that get in the way of a burgeoning career in comedy. He revealed the whole story during a TV special that celebrated the show's 50th anniversary. Carol and I actually go way back, he said.
I was 10 years old. And I really wanted to be on the Carol Burnett show.
Because I was a young, aspiring comedian, and I did about 150 voices already. So he wrote almost exactly that in a letter and sent it to Burnett herself. He even got a supposedly personal response from her that read, "Unfortunately, at this time we aren't hiring children, just grown-ups. But stay in school, study hard, and keep watching our show. Yours truly, Carol Burnett." As it turns out, he just ignored her advice and ended up dropping out of high school when he was 16. But it doesn't seem like it hurt his career too much. So if you're a once-in-a-lifetime comedy legend, go ahead and drop out of school. But if you're not, maybe stick around.
I'll cross my fingers for you.
Liking this video so far? If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Now let's get back to the list. Jerry Lewis was one of his biggest influences growing up. Every great comic can tell you exactly who influenced them to get into comedy, and for Jim Carrey, Jerry Lewis was a huge part of it. He even wrote a whole piece for Time magazine about Lewis's influence on him. He wrote, "I've always had this psychic connection with Jerry Lewis. When I was 6 or 7 years old, I'd be sitting in my house with my family and have this really palpable feeling that one of his movies was on. I'd turn on the television and, sure enough, Money from Home or Living It Up would be playing. For as long as I can remember, I've been drawn to the total sense of freedom in Jerry's work. I've never been particularly grounded in the real world myself, and I love the idea of rebellion against reality. And through his comedy, Jerry would stretch the boundaries of reality so far that it was an act of anarchy. He was completely free of this contrivance that we walk through life with, and I found that extremely liberating. Every artist is fed by the people who came before them. In the same way that Jimi Hendrix learned from Chuck Berry, I learned from Jerry. He's part of my makeup. I don't do exactly what he did, but his freedom and his disrespect for the norm is there in my work."
Thank you for all your cooperation.
Those rumors of a feud between Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, those are false.
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
There are a lot of comparisons to be drawn between Jim Carrey and Robin Williams. They're both comedy legends of the stage and screen who got their start at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles and have starred in some of the most popular comedies ever made, and are both able to portray a huge variety of hilarious characters, be they Ace Ventura or Mrs. Doubtfire or Lloyd Christmas or Mork or whoever. And they also both had their heyday in the 1990s. The decade was big enough for the both of them, but the media, just to keep things exciting, decided to report that there was an intense feud going on between the two. These rumors have resurfaced lately, thanks to Dave Itzkoff's new Robin Williams biography. Carrey cleared the air. Radar Online is completely off base in creating a feud that didn't exist. Robin may have expressed insecurity about me in my rise to success, but I've never had anything but the greatest respect for him and his genius. He was also always respectful to me in person. He called me Maestro and I called him Billy the Kid. Let's get it straight. There's no feud if one side isn't aware of it.
Whew. Now I feel better.
Jim Carrey will be open to playing another comic book role. Jim Carrey's best-known comic book role was the Riddler in Batman Forever, and he's also played Colonel Stars and Stripes in Kick-Ass 2, not to mention The Mask in, The Mask. But those aren't the only comic book roles that he's been considered for. He was reportedly even in the running for the role of Brainiac in Tim Burton's Superman movie. That one that never got made? Plus, it was once reported that Marvel were trying to cast Jim Carrey and Adam Sandler as Rocket Raccoon and Groot, the voice roles that would eventually go to Bradley Cooper and Vin Diesel, respectively. The actor himself has said that he'd be open to other comic book roles in movies, too. He's even said that he might even reprise his role as the Riddler in the DC Extended Universe. When the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight movies were coming out, he once said in an interview,
I'd love to work
in the new, graphic novel versions of the movie.
I don't know about reprising the role. I don't know if Chris Nolan would go for that. I'd love to work with him. He doesn't usually like to play the same character twice, but he did note that this would be a different version of the character, since the DCEU movies are a fair bit darker than the Joel Schumacher train wreck that he appeared in.
So dark? You sure you're not from the DC universe?
Carrey was rejected by Saturday Night Live.
Forget that crap. Get on with the stuff that got you expelled.
Jim Carrey auditioned to join the cast of Saturday Night Live in the year that some of the greats like Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman, and Jan Hooks were also auditioning. While the latter three were cast and went on to become SNL legends, Carrey was unfortunately left behind. According to SNL overlord Lorne Michaels, Jim Carrey never auditioned for him personally. Of course, the hugely energetic and always fresh and hilarious Jim Carrey would have made for a fantastic addition to the cast of SNL. But hey, no one will be able to identify comic genius every time they see it. It's amazing that Lorne Michaels and his team have discovered so many comedy greats over the years as it is. Mike Myers, Will Ferrell, Kate McKinnon, Kristen Wiig, Bill Hader, the list goes on and on and on. It makes sense that in all that talent, a few are gonna slip through the cracks.
You were good, kid, real good. But as long as I'm around, you'll always be second best, see?
Jim Carrey hates doing sequels.
They come back. They go around again. They just go around and round.
Jim Carrey isn't really that much of a sequel guy. He doesn't like playing the same character twice. In fact, that's what made Count Olaf the ideal role for him. This was a guy who plays different characters every half hour or so within the same movie. Of course, he has done some sequels. He did Ace Ventura When Nature Calls, and finally came around to the idea of a Dumb and Dumber sequel 20 years after the fact. But he doesn't really do them in general. It's not that the studios don't want to do sequels to his movies. The box office grosses that his movies have, Bruce Almighty grossed over $400 million worldwide. Those are just unheard of for comedies. In fact, sometimes they're so desperate for a sequel to his films that they'll do something absurd like Evan Almighty or Son of the Mask without realizing that the appeal of Jim Carrey's movies isn't the title or the franchise. It's Jim Carrey, duh. He explained why he doesn't really like to do sequels in more detail recently, saying,
I find sequels are, it's a function of commerce.
At least the two I've done, they were characters I enjoyed doing, but I did find myself almost parroting myself at that point. When you put 10 years between you and the last time you did it, suddenly you're going, how did I do that again? So you're imitating your original inspiration. It was super fun with Jeff for the Dumb and Dumber sequel, but I'm not a crazy sequel guy.
I'd like to think so.
Jim Carrey apparently saw a ghost in the hotel from The Shining. The Stanley Hotel in Colorado is where Stephen King stayed when he came up with the idea for The Shining. So, in a way, it's the closest thing that the real world has to the haunted Overlook Hotel, and the Stanley has been making a fortune out of this connection for years. The book was a bestseller, and fans come from far and wide to stay there and get inside King's head. The infamous Room 217 is still the hotel's most requested booking to this day, purely for its connection to the ghosts from the book. Dumb and Dumber was filming near the hotel, and while they were in the area, Jim Carrey spent a night at the Stanley. Like many guests before and after him, Carrey asked specifically to stay in room 217.
Yeah, sure. Why not? That'd be great. Yeah, I'd love that.
In the middle of the night, about 3 hours after he went to sleep, Carrey came running out of the room screaming, left the hotel, and refused to go back. Even to this day, he is stuck to the vow he made that day that he would never ever step foot inside that hotel again, and he still refuses to tell anyone why. One rumor has it that he saw the ghost of his grandfather, but that could just be hearsay. Or maybe it was all just a big prank.
No, it wasn't really. I would never.
He celebrated the 20th anniversary of the Comedy Store wearing nothing but a sock on his junk.
Ooh, somebody stop me!
The Comedy Store is a stand-up comedy club in LA where countless legendary comedians got their start. It's where Jerry Seinfeld and Gary Shandling and Robin Williams honed their acts and became superstars. Another one of these comics was Jim Carrey. Mitzi Shore, the owner of the club who gave all these comedians their first shots, passed away recently, and Carrey couldn't have spoken more highly of her. Mourning her passing, Carrey said, "The great Mitzi Shore, owner of the famous Comedy Store, has passed away. No words can express the gratitude I have for her. We met in 1979. She opened the door to my dreams. If she loved you, you did well. If she didn't, you did something else. I will love her forever." Carrey made a reappearance at the store to celebrate the 20th anniversary since it opened its doors. A ton of comics who got their start there appeared for the celebrations, including Richard Pryor, who struggled onto the stage as he battled multiple sclerosis. When Carrey took the stage to celebrate the anniversary of the club that made him a comedy legend, he was wearing nothing but a sock on his junk. That must have taken some, pardon the pun, balls.
It's the game! Nothing further, Your Honor.
Carrey predicted his own $10 million payday. If that unusual red carpet interview from the fashion event where he attacked media personalities that went viral taught us anything, it's that Jim Carrey has stayed grounded, no matter how famous and rich and successful he's gotten. He's not the kind of guy to go all Hollywood and become a vapid, disconnected airhead.
I don't care too much for money.
In 1997, when he was the biggest movie star in the world, he told Oprah Winfrey a story from the days when he was a struggling actor who couldn't get any work. He said that he wrote himself a $10 million check and dated it 3 years in the future. 3 years later, he earned $10 million. As he explains the story himself,
I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered.
and dated it Thanksgiving 1995. I put it in my wallet and it deteriorated. And then, just before Thanksgiving 1995, I found out I was going to make $10 million for Dumb and Dumber. I put that check in the casket with my father because it was our dream together. Isn't that sweet? He's made it and all he wanted to do was share the moment with his dad.
Last but not least, my favorite.
Jim Carrey was considered for the lead role in almost every movie since 1994. After Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, Dumb and Dumber, and The Mask were all released to huge box office success and critical acclaim in 1994,
Alrighty then.
Jim Carrey was the biggest movie star in the world. So, every producer with a movie in the pipeline wanted to get him in the lead role in their project.
I'm Batman.
And after those 3 hits, he could have his pick. He was considered to play Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story opposite Paul Newman, who the filmmakers originally wanted to play Woody. The idea being that the 2 actors represented New Hollywood and Old Hollywood respectively. Mike Myers considered Carrey for the role of Dr. Evil before deciding to play it himself. The producers of Meet the Parents originally intended the role of Greg Fokker to be played by Carrey. Carrey's been considered for everything. They wanted him to play Shaggy in the live-action Scooby-Doo movie, and
That's not entirely true.
Buddy and Elf, and Willy Wonka and Tim Burton's gloomy gothic Roald Dahl adaptation. Jim Carrey was even considered for the role of Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. It's hard to consider most of these movies without the actors that made them great, but if anyone could have pulled it off, it's definitely Carrey. Help keep us smoking! Hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss an update. And don't go anywhere, stick around to check out some more great videos.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.